All right, well, a lot more people than I thought were going to be here, so that's good. Earlier this week, I was at the Carbon Summit in Melbourne, which is a similar conference to what we have here, but based on carbon only, and it's very similar mood, I suppose, a small, close-knit industry talking about, problems that we have and how we're going to get people to, instead of recycling better, in that case, create more carbon abatement, reduce the emissions and all. A lot of key figures over there, but I think what came out of that was really a feeling that the rest of the carbon industry is moving away and quickly ahead and leaving us behind. So one of the key things, rather than get into the details on how to participate, and I'll get onto that, and you can have the slides later on, and you can harass me as to exactly how you participate. Just try and maybe urge you to consider these things seriously, because we used to be the leaders in that space, and within the first auction, we lost 20% in terms of volumes of, waste used to be 60% of the abatement, it's only now 38%, and before you know it, the funds will sort of run off. So anyway, that was my little introduction. I'll get onto the detail of it later, but I'd like to start with those objective in carbon for this year. There's a conference in Paris at the end of the year that's there to set up the international agreement on carbon going forward. That's a post-2020 agreement, and what it will do is set a legally binding agreement for all countries to reduce their emission going forward. And look, Australia is not doing really great. 5% reduction by 2020, we've already done it, so it's not too hard. But the motto for that conference is more, faster, and now. And I think that really applies to us as a waste industry. We really are at the low-hanging fruit side of the carbon equation, and I really urge you to have a look at it now. Started again with that sort of big picture view. This is home. There will be a splendid animation of climate change just following on that I've done myself. But essentially, it's kind of hard to remember how small that atmosphere is and how easy it is for us to make a difference. It's really just that tiny little layer at the top, and we share it with both our parents and kids and so on. So I just really want to inspire you to remember that, it's not a rocket science, it's not crap, it's not anything like that. Climate change is real, it's happening now. We've already got close to 1 degree up and getting to 2. And the mechanism is very well known. It's that simple. The heat comes in and gets trapped in, and that warms the planet. What we can do at our own little level is just take care of those 2 or 3 kilometers of atmosphere above our heads. That's the challenge for everyone, I suppose. And in Australia, that's how we frame it. We want a 5% reduction by 2020, which becomes about 200 million tons to 400 million tons of carbon units that we want to reduce. And our previous target was to not increase our emission beyond 8%. So we've achieved that. Well done. We're now trying to reduce by 5%. It's essentially going to be very easy, but there's a lot of money on the table for us to go and snatch that. In the past, that was the carbon sector in Australia. 66% waste. A bit of avoided deforestation, which in my view is a really committed project. I'll swear I'm not going to cut down that tree, and I'll get credit for it. Thanks very much, very capital intensive. And there's a potential in our industry to just come up at about 40 million tons overall. That's if we do everything we can, dirty MRFs, organics, recycling, soil carbon, and all that sort of stuff. So we should really be a quarter of our carbon efforts. At the first auction, there's only 18 million tons of the 47 that were contracted that were coming from waste. Only 2 councils were successful, Grafton and I think Armidale, if I'm not wrong. Everything else was forestry or big private corporation and that sort of things. So again, that message, if you're considering these things, and you've heard Mark this morning urging you to look at it and register your project early, you need to look at it more, you need to look at it faster and do it now, because the second auction is coming and we're getting left behind. In terms of who else is coming in that space, there's a list here of potential competitors and what sort of price they're looking at. And you can see that the sort of volumes we're talking about are easily surpass what we need. So, you know, I was talking about before that we need about 236 million tons reduction. So these guys without us can do that at a sort of price that's well below what we've got used to. So MRA came up with a little chart on how to participate once you've decided that. Before I go into that, I just wanted to update you, essentially, calling you to move now. I think there's really 4 categories of people in that room. You either have an existing carbon type project in place, and that will be a flare or an electricity generation process or mixed waste diversion or some waste to Sycamore grant that you just scored. And you want to register that project under the ERF. If you want to do that, you've only got 7 weeks to go. From the 1st of July onwards, all the transitioning arrangements in place with the ERF will disappear. And after that, you'll have to be a new project to be able to participate. So within 7 weeks, you'll be part of business as usual, no incentive for you. So, you know, it's not hard to do. It's only a couple of forms to fill in. Make sure that if you have something in place already, you go and register it now. If you have something in progress, so you're another category of waste to Sycamore recipient where you've got your grant or you just have some other funding to go ahead with your project, just hold off a little bit before you go and undertake the project, because that newness requirement we quickly touched on this morning is very essential. Your project needs to be new at the time of registration. If you start buying some equipment, if you go too far down the road of approvals, you'll be considered as, you know, business as usual project and will not be eligible. If you have any sustainability projects up in the pipeline for the next 5 years, I'd recommend you register that now and just add it on the list, because the minute you get approval from either your board of directors or your council, again, you will be deemed not new and not additional. So anything you have on the pipeline, be it, you know, a change in street lighting in 2 years' time, a change to your vehicle fleet, gas flare, organics diversion, even the introduction of a garden waste system if you have that in the pipeline. Anything that you can think of that's got a method attached to it, and I'll go to the list a bit later on, you need to register it now to make sure you don't miss out on that newness test. That really is the key difference from what we were used to before. The last bit, and I think that's where our work gets pretty interesting, is what if there is no method for what you want to do? And the key example of that is a dirty MRF. What if you receive a bunch of mixed CNI waste and you create PEF with it, or just try and extract as much material as you can from it? There's no method for that at the moment, and there's no avenue for us to draft a method and get it approved. You need to make representation to the department and explain why this is a priority. And I think with the level of CNI recovery that we have, I think we can do with a bit of help in that space. And if you want to do that, then come and talk to Joe or to myself at the Walmart Carbon Group, and then we'll make those presentations for you and make sure there is a method. All right, with that in mind, let's assume you have a project and it's new and you're ready to go. These are the 7 steps you need to follow. The first one, I don't know if people have seen this sort of curve before. They call marginal cost of abatement curve. They essentially rank the projects, the carbon projects you have, from the most cost effective to the most expensive. The first thing you need to do is have one of those, or at least have a fairly good idea on where you want to go, rank them and have a look at which of these projects actually have a method for. If they don't have a method for it, just adapt it to the DRF requirements. One thing that is important to understand is DRF is only here to help. It's not going to make or break your case. The only thing it's going to do is it's going to take your cost of abatement curve, just bring it down by a certain amount of about $14 per ton. That was the last price. So it's just going to help you with the operational revenue, but it's not going to fundamentally change what you're doing. It's just that little extra help, which is a bit of tension with the whole idea of the RF, that you need to be completely additional and wouldn't go ahead if you didn't have this funding. But the reality is only that operational help. Once you have that method, you go and register it. There's a fairly lengthy bureaucratic process, but essentially you have to be a fit and proper person, and your project needs to meet all the eligibility requirement of that particular method. You need to open a carbon account and then go ahead and get your planning and license approvals. All of that needs to be done more than 20 days before the auction, and then once you're there and you have a project registered, you can then participate in the auction and monetize those permits. This needs to happen at least 20 days before, as I said, but you can register for an auction at any given time. So even though the second auction hasn't been called yet, you can register for the next one. It's a three-step process. First, you need to agree the general terms and conditions. They essentially say, you will deliver abatement and I'll pay you money for it. Second one is you need to deliver a set of delivery schedule to tell the government when you are going to generate your abatement. And the third one, on the day of the auction, you actually go and nominate the price that you want for it. So again, all these things are within a very narrow time frame. And if you wait until the next auction is called, you'll run out of time to go through all these hoops. The typical registration process takes 6 to 8 weeks. To do a forecast of your emissions and then agree on the price and so on, we find typically take another 5. So Mark this morning was saying that we're probably, we'll be looking at an auction sooner rather than later. I'd say probably August will be the next one. So if you want to get onto that, you better get it now. When you do your forecast, and that's probably where we can assist, but it's actually pretty complex in terms of looking forward. The beauty of the RF is you get a 7-year offtake agreement at a fixed volume and fixed price. That's unique in the world of carbon. No one else gets paid a secure contract like this anywhere else in the world. But the downside of that is you've got to be able to forecast your abatement accurately, and we're not really good at that in waste. So there really is 2 different profiles. If you're a landfill, gas flare or electricity generation project, you know that as you put more wells in, you'll capture a bit more. As more waste goes in, you'll capture a bit more. If you're a diversion project, you actually, I can talk to you about why the curve looks like this, but essentially you're locking all your abatement from day one, and then the government only slowly releases the credit to you, and the curve looks something like this. Now you need to have enough confidence in that sort of forecast to then sign the life away in a carbon abatement contract with the government. Once you've got your forecast, you need to set a price. And tell you what's the minimum price that I need to make this worthwhile. And there's a lot of talk about what was the carbon abatement, the reserve price or the benchmark price as they call it. How did the government pick and choose the winners? At the end of the day, I find this discussion, even though we've got a bottle of wine on it, whether the price goes up, down, sideways, I find that ultimately completely irrelevant, because from one auction to the other, you've got no idea who else is going to participate. Is big coal going to participate or not? Is energy efficiency coming through? Is there a new method that's going to be developed and a new business model coming up? You just don't know. So at the end of the day, you can speculate all you want on what the price is, but what we recommend is just go back to basically your own project and just bid that. That's probably a reason why most of the local councils haven't succeeded in the first auction, because they went in at the actual price of abatement, which is $20, $30 a ton, and it was nowhere near what they needed to be successful. Anyway, in practice, the government sets a benchmark price and buys 80% of the volumes below that price. So there's a range there of between 0 and a price higher than $14 a ton of successful projects. Once you're there, you've secured your contract away, and then you can just monetize that, have some sort of any financial agreement you want on the back of it. It becomes back business as usual, the same thing we had in the CFI, where you generate abatement, create a report on it, it gets audited, you get credits back, and then you find a buyer to sell those credits to. It just happens that under the RF there's only one buyer, and that's the government. So that's fairly straightforward, and the cost of doing these sort of things have come down dramatically. That's sort of audit requirement. I think one thing that's key if you're going to play in that space is to understand that you'll never get your forecast right, ever. And so you're always going to need some sort of ongoing contract management to deal with either a shortfall or an excess on your delivery. That's very different, again, to what we had before. We used to just do our best, generate some credits and sell them. Now, on this particular one, the downside of having a locked volume and price is that you need to have an active contract management system in place. Within the contract, there's a few flexibility mechanisms. So you can under-deliver by 20% in any given year, as long as you can swear that you'll deliver the full things by the end of the contract. You can deliver early, so that's a really strong incentive to underbid. So if you deliver early and you get there early, then the government may agree to pay you all the money up front, well, when you deliver. But that's pretty much it. Oh, and I suppose the last flexibility mechanism is you can use somebody else's accuse. So one of the key things people are doing is they register a landfill gas flare project, And then on the back of that, they're doing some energy efficiency, street lighting, that sort of things. And they use the credits from these secondary projects to prop up their original bids. So you don't end up with multiple contracts, you just have the one, but multiple sources. There's a bunch of other things that will come to you eventually, derivatives and other sales and that sort of things. Have a look at them because they're actually a lot more important than they were under CFI. And one thing that I'm thinking of is once you've got that bankable contract for, say, organics diversion for 7 years, that's a really good source of capital for you to then actually go and buy a piece of kit. So things like adding a line on your MUF line to just pull out more timber or that sort of thing, you can self-fund that using some carbon contract that you may have. All right, once you've got that, you probably, I'm going fairly quickly through all that, but happy to take you in details later on. But once you've done all that, and I think that's a key message for our industry, is it's not about AWTs and landfill gas anymore. There's about 20 methods that have been approved to date and another 40 in the pipeline. And I'd be surprised if you guys can't use at least 10 of those. It's switch your lights to LED, install a new air conditioning machine that's a bit more efficient, use some biodiesel, you name it. There's methods for pretty much anything. And it is a bit of a skill to get out of your waste department, bringing your sustainability department with you, and then have a look at working together to actually get those other projects up and running. But anyway, little plug on carbon strategies. They look similar to your waste strategies. Shouldn't be too foreign for any of us, but you really need to have one in place to make sure that you target the first and the most sensible projects first. I know solar panels on roof look good, but it isn't necessarily the best thing you can do under the RF with the best return. Right, a bit dense. I hope I haven't lost you in the way being the last one here. I'll just repeat that original memo. We need to do more, we need to do it faster, we need to do it now, both as an industry and as a country. So please get onto it. We used to be the main force in that space. Only 2 councils that are now successful and CETA essentially. It's just not good enough. So let's get on with it. Thank you.